Okay,
This conference
thanks.
will now be recorded.
Okay, first of all, we need to know what is on-farm experiment. It refers to small-scale operational trials built around your own knowledge and experience, and to examine if a tech or production practice would fit into your large-scale production. For example, grow a new crop, apply new soil amendment, adopt a new method for weed control, etc., etc. Through the observation of your experiment, you can tweak your production system to achieve better results, such as a higher crop yield or improved soil productivity. This is the on-farm experiment defined. You may ask, why should I do that? There are a bunch of scientists who do this kind of things for their lives. But I want to let you know that the research by scientists, their objective is to improve the productivity quality, better crop protection, enhance nutrient use efficiency, etc., etc. But their research is focused on clarity of results. They don't normally consider external factors or economic benefit. When they conduct experiment, they try to avoid any complicated experiment site and try to reduce variability. And another important component of their research, when they're talking about the results are significantly different one from another, it doesn't really mean it's economically significant, which is something we are looking for at farm level. And continue on that, why should I do it? An on-farm trial will meet your specific needs, allow you to try out your ideas or test a new practice to see if it works on your situation and your management skill, because it is done on your own land. That covers all the landscape variation and soil conditions. So with your own farm equipment and operation procedures, you don't have to worry about how other guys did it. And once it's successful, it will be successful. If your experiment is successful, it will be successful for next year when you do a large scale. Therefore, a better assurance that the new measure you're about to introduce works on your farm. And some of the examples I listed over here, as on the left side, it's a winter wheat planting date experiment. You see the 3 different dates, seeding dates. And in the middle, it's the seeding rate variations. And on the last one on the right, it's a manure application. So you could see those are very simple, straightforward, and easy to see the results. How do I do that? Step 1, ask one specific question. The question that your experiment would provide answer. Examples will include, does this soil amendment increase flax yield? And then you just need to apply this kind of amendment into a flax field. And the other things like, is this a new wheat variety better than the one I have grown? And does for cultivation control Canada thistle? Normally just ask one question for each of those field trials. And step 2, keep experiment simple and allow only 1 or 2 treatments, not to mix together. Use the example I gave earlier, use soil amendment, you could apply 2 rates, that'll be the 2 treatment. And if you just apply 1 rate, then that will be a 1 treatment. And always include untreated control, because you would be able to compare your results. And if possible, and most likely it is possible to repeat a couple of times or even in different field. Because the compare treatments with untreated control, I would answer. For example, using a cultivate treatment to compare with a cultivated strip to examine for cultivation with a delay, so germination next spring. If you field as a treatment to no control, you wouldn't know if that really delayed because the whole field is is the same. And step number 3, select a site and lay out the experiment nicely. And the best location is the field where this method will be taking place in the future. Avoid unusual spots, such as the old yard or old barn locations, because those are not typical situation in your field. And don't always put untreated control besides a road or ditch. That means you would randomize the strips if possible. And for those kind of strip experiment, and you actually could put it in the middle of the field, which is far away from the influence of a road or depression or whatever specific situations. Step number 4, define the measurement. That means what you are going to observe. Decide parameters to measure and when to measure it. For example, if you do experiment with Canada thistle, the plant counts, the plant weight, height, patch size, all those could be measurable parameters. For soil amendment experiment, you could to compare with a check like germination, crop development, height, and a crop yield. And when you do this measurement, remember to do them both on both of the treatment and the control. And don't forget to take samples if you feel there are something need to be studied details, and take photos as well. And then number 5, keep record. Write down what you did, when you did it, where you did it, and what you saw. A lot of times in the field, we probably think, yeah, it's easy to, yeah, I could remember that. But 3 days after, you don't remember. Trust me. Many unexpected results can be explained by the condition during the growing season. When you observe it in the field, you write it down, and a later time you could come back and you could use this kind of a note to explain a lot of things you observed, which may not be explainable if you don't have those kind of supporting document. Support this record with photos showing the differences. And number 6, step 6 is analyze the data, evaluate result, help you to come to a conclusion, and then you would be able to test if that thing worked or not worked. Put all the information together and try to figure out the answer, the question you asked before you started the experiment. And sometimes stats analysis is required. In that case, if you are good on stats, do it yourself. And if you are not, ask a professional to help. In most of the cases, when you need stats, you need at least 3 repeats. Okay, I am going to close this one and move to another presentation talking about adopt. Excuse me, just give me a couple of minutes. Yeah, adopt it is a acronym for agriculture demonstration of practice and technology. And this is a program, this program provides funding to help producer group demonstrate and evaluate new technology and practices at the local level. And the program eligibility, it basically only the adopt experiment that agri-ARM sites that 8 of them across the province are eligible. Also, the commodity group, Sasa Organics, is one of those commodity group eligible to apply for funding. And the project evaluation criteria include the relevance of the project at local level, the producer's involvement, potential impact, and probability of adoption. In general, I would say, if you do this kind of experiment and representing a local producers, they want to find out if this kind of technology would, apply to their farm as well. That will be the one of the critical criteria. If it's only for example, if some crop only grow by yourself, and normally you won't get the support because it doesn't really represent the local interests. The funding component, yeah, we will receive a lot of applications. The funding is awarded on a competitive basis. Each project is entitled to have a $10,000 per site per year, and some of the project could be include 2 to 3 sites, and that means the project could get funding up to $20,000 or $30,000 for a year if that got multiple sites included. And each commodity group is eligible for $75,000 up to a maximum $75,000 per year. The eligible cost include any capital purchase. This is ineligible. I should say the eligible cost include all the direct project costs, administration cost up to 5%, and a field day cost to a maximum of $10,000. Ineligible cost include any capital purchase over $300 and honorarium for staff or producers members. So anybody who participate in this program, like farmers, won't get paid for doing experiment. Adopt program is available for application twice a year. The fall project, if the project start in fall, the application must be in the research must be submitted to ministry by June 7th. And for project started in spring, the deadline for application is November 22nd. I would provide my support to Sasa Organics, and if individual producers want to conduct some kind of adopt experiment on your farm, contact Marla Carlson. Contact Marla Carlson. And I would help to get the application straightforward. And if you need my help to draft the application, I don't have issues with that either. Give advice or whatever you need me. Yeah, that's what I'm saying today. Any questions?
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dunling. Yeah, so now just open it up for conversation. Is anyone on the call currently doing experiments on your farm? Have you engaged in the Adopt program? Do you have any questions or comments for Dunling? Yeah, so over to you.
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Absolutely, please.
Do you guys help facilitate partnerships with, say, the universities and stuff like that? If we're looking for more labor, more research type projects.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. We haven't done that so far, but it's definitely something. I think having that kind of assistance can be helpful for a research project. I don't know, Dunling, if you want to comment on that.
Sure. I guess a lot of in most cases, as a scientist in university, they have their own ideas on doing research thing, and they are actually actively looking for farmers to give them ideas of what your concerns are, and they try to develop their research project, to address your urgent issues or important concerns. Yeah, if you would be able to get your ideas to Marla or myself, and then we would be able to breach this kind of information to university. And I happen to know some of the professors in the university, so we could work together. And if it's some scientific things, yeah, we would help. But a lot of times, they need to think about if this is a scientific questions, or do they need to have some kind of a specific research design to address this kind of concern. Yeah. So those guys know. So we could send those kind of information to them and let them to consider if that, could be a good project.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Dunling.
I will.
I'm just going to repeat some of the things that Dunling said. When you're doing these experiments, document, because like he says, 3 days later you'll have forgot, or taking pictures is absolutely essential, I think, because it reminds you of things and they're all date stamped. And you should be taking a look at maybe plant growth, plant stage. Some of these things don't seem like important at the time, but if you're trying to explain something later, all of a sudden they can become extremely important.
Thanks, Martin, that's a very important point. Yeah. And another thing, what I want to put a stress on it is ask one question, not try to eat too much on each experiment. So ask one question, use a simple design, and probably 1 or 2 treatment. And I know that it would be great to get so many concerns resolved in one experiment. Most likely you won't be able to, because there's an interaction between those kind of treatment factors, which is so complicated. That's the reason when you see those scientists, when they did experiment, they put 128 treatment small plots over there, because they have so many factors built in. And when you have to use stats to resolve those kind of interaction, figure that out, the interaction between those treatment, it need like 4 or 5 treatments, and then you would be able to separate different factors. And that is way beyond our brain could handle. You have to use computer software to do that thing, to separate. If this is attributed to the water, or treat to the variety, or treat the nutrients you attribute it to the nutrients you added. So it's complicated. For our experiment on farm, the simple way is to choose to ask one question, as what I give the examples, not to put this together. And because we are farmers, so we got time. Our lifetime is experimenting. So every year is a different experiment. Hi, Will. Congratulations for your 30 years award.
And I think just to add on to what you said, Dunling, about, asking one question with a couple of treatments, I think too, you know, when you're writing up the document and, it might be the winter and you're not in the thick of farming, it's a lot easier to be more ambitious. And then when you're doing the research and you're farming, sometimes, it just gets to be a bit much. So, I think that's another reason to, to be, I guess, to be precise in your research question, right? And I think that, that's where Dunling can really be helpful, in helping, I think, to narrow it down or to identify what it is that you would like to, try out on your farm.
Yeah. And the other thing is stick to your experiment, original thought. Don't change your mind in the middle. And that'll be even worse. When you think, yeah, this is a great idea, I would change that. And then you get lost. It's pretty easy to get lost, actually. Particularly when you get so busy, so many things during growing season, you probably don't have time. And you can, if try to stick to whatever your plan at the beginning, as close as possible.
Is there anybody on the call that maybe has participated in an adopt project that or is participating that maybe wants to share their experience? Or
Thanks, Deb.
I
I
mean
think
to
I
put you
first,
on the spot.
I
I
think
think there's a few others,
I
Will.
first, I think I first seriously met Deb when she and Dunling were working on plots. We had probably four years ago at least, I guess. Um, yeah, and it was a thistle project actually. Happened to be a couple of dry years. We ended up not getting very conclusive results because one of the plots we were trying to incorporate cover crops and grazing couldn't get the cover crops established, of course. So we actually asked for an extension, and that was possible. So we moved to the next year. The next year wasn't a whole heck of a lot better. But I can certainly speak to what Dunling and Marla said, and well, to Martin as well. Documentation is very important, but as Marla said, don't bite off more than you can chew. It you're so dead on, Marla, in saying that. Yeah, it's really easy to dream big in the wintertime when the snow is on the ground, but when you get busy and there's a lot of stuff to do, and the adopt stuff has to be done along with everything else. It's it's yeah, there's a certain amount of personal resistance to getting at it, because it's interesting, but it potentially can stand in the way of other stuff because it takes some time. The other factor is, I guess, that you do. I mean, it's expected that it's in a demonstration project, which means you have to show it to other people, and that's of value. But even in the years in which it isn't, I mean, I know that people are reluctant to have anybody on their farm unless they think things look really good. But the truth is that farming is full of failures. On any given year, you never know which is going to be that year, and I think people have to expect at a field day that the bad is going to come along with the good.
And Martin has conducted several successful adopted project. That was about a decade ago. I remember when I started working with the ministry, I saw Martin's report. I follow up. Yeah, it was great. And some of those are quite impressive. And probably you think come back for that again, Martin.
Yeah, I've done, I think, at least 3 adopt programs. I did one on the termination timing of sweet clover just to see at what time when you terminate it, how much nitrogen it puts into the soil. I did one on Canada thistle, the depth of cultivation to see if depth of cultivation made any difference. I did one on that ended up being a complete disaster. Didn't learn anything from it. We just killed it through because it was dealt with germination and nothing germinated. So that one was a write-off. I did one for Organic Canada with seeding rates. I did that 2 years in a row. It made sense to do it 2 years in a row because there was the first year it was very, very dry. The second year it was way wetter, and there was 2 completely different results because of the differences in weather. So sometimes repeating the same experiment again in a subsequent year makes a lot of sense. So the other thing that you find from doing these things is even though you're recording certain things and looking for certain things, there's other little factors that come into play that all of a sudden give you additional information. All of a sudden, like the seeding rate, if you would have looked just at the data in the first year that it was dry, there was no statistical difference between the different seeding rates. And yet there was a difference because when I looked at the weeds underneath each one of those seeding rates, the heavier seeding rate, there was no weeds, and that really wasn't part of the experiment, but it became part of the knowledge that you get, and then the second one where there was a statistical difference between the seeding rates, and I guess I should mention that there was several different plots. One was the control, which is kind of conventional seeding rate. The second pass was 1.5 times conventional, then 1 1.25, 1.5, and 2 times conventional seeding rates. So if the conventional seeding rate was a bushel an acre, then 2 times would have been 2 bushels of seed per acre. The second year where there was this big statistical difference and the heavier seeding rate give me a bigger yield, you have to sit down and why was there the bigger yield? But in that case, my conclusion was that it didn't make any difference on the hills, but in the low spots, the heavier seeding rate competed with the wild oats, and I actually had yield in those spots rather than the wild oats just choking it all out. So you get to see and try to interpret it, and so all those things are quite valuable. And it would have been nice to do those things now when I have GPS on the tractor. You could just make one pass, move over 3, do another one, move over 3, do another one, and then come back and start again and do the second one and repeat it. So sometimes you can make it a lot easier to do some of these experiments than when I first started doing it.
Yeah, another thing I want to point it out is that actually ministry really liked this idea to create one project. Farmers in different areas or different soil zones or climate conditions and do same kind of experiment, see how that will work in different places. So the later time, even let's say if do this kind of seeding rate thing in different places, and we would get we would be able to get like up to $30,000 for that one project because of 3 different farmers participate, and then we just need to submit one application, and one final report, and but got 3 sites, and then we could show to our 3 different locations demonstration. That would be perfect, you know. And we just need to have interested producers work together, and then we submit one application. Everybody does the same way. We got lots of wisdom, I could see, from this group.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, I think if you think something is an issue that represented to your whole area, and then you could talk to Marla or myself, and we could put an application in for you. If you are too busy to sit down, write, and we could do that. I know that the money is not really a significant, the funding amount, but at least would be able to subside some of the cost of the project. If you have to do it yourself, it will be cost as well. So at least some of the materials, or like seeds, or some. If you are looking at the soil amendment, money could be used to pay for purchase these things.
And Lang, I was
Yes.
wondering if capital expenses would be covered on the ADOPT project.
Capital, like
Well, a
spending-
machine
yeah, the
or
renting.
a rental of machine, I guess, would be.
Yeah, rental of the machine will be covered. But if you use your own equipment, a farm machine, then that will be your in-kind contribution. And if anything less than $300, then you could buy it.
Okay, so
yeah, over $300.
say
Yeah, go ahead.
EPS stuff or soil testing materials.
Yeah,
Like
that'll
a
be
kit.
Yeah, that'll be the project would cover that. Or the soil sample you take and then send to a lab for testing, those will be covered.
Yeah, when I had soil testing, all the soil testing costs were covered because that was something I wasn't doing. So if you have to hire a custom something or other, or those are usually covered, and they're usually in part of your application. Yeah, but capital costs, yeah, no. You have to buy your own equipment, but anything you need to help with that is definitely covered.
And if you need to hire somebody to assist in, some parts of the project, that's an eligible expense as well, if I recall.
Yeah, and if you need to hire somebody to do the soil sampling, it will be covered. The cost of hiring that person for a couple of days to do the soil sampling is also eligible cost for the project. The only things, the many things, things that, like your time, for example, if Will conduct the project on his farm, he cannot charge $50 per hour when he work on the project. The equipment, his tractor won't be, the use of his tractor won't be covered. But if he didn't have that tractor or something, farm equipment that need for the experiment, he could ask his neighbor to help. That rent will be covered.
Yeah, and that going along with that line, if you have to hire someone to interpret some of your results, again, that would be.
Yeah, that will be
covered.
consulting. Yeah, that would be consulting, and even You know, if you need somebody to write the report, that'll be something consulting would cover. Yeah. There's a consulting fee on the application form. And one thing I remember earlier time, I reviewed some of those applications. They try to, some people feel like, yeah, I would do this. You know, I would use a larger area, 80 acres of those things, and I would charge seeds and whatever. That would cost like $25,000 for that particular site. This is not allowed. The maximum $10,000 per site per year. That's the golden rule, and nobody can break that. And so I remember when I suggested, well, you cannot ask that much because it's over the limit. They said, I don't care. I just do that, and that will be rejected. Yeah. Well, if you have any interest in doing this, let me know first, and then I could give you some suggestions, because in the past I managed this kind of project for so many years, and I know what we are looking for, and I could give you the suggestion and put that into the application, which would help to get the funding. And the more important part is we need to get a good project. You know, we need to make efforts, make those projects successful, and then next time we build reputation, we do a good job, then we would get more funding.
Yeah, and you know, maybe this is something that the Research and Education Committee, Sask Organics, can discuss, taking that, you know, you described a bit of a more coordinated approach where, you know, we have done, it's a couple of years old now, but we did survey our members asking what the research priorities, you know, what producers' research priorities are. And, you know, we could have a look at that and decide if there was something that we did want to experiment, like you were saying, in different soil zones, and, you know, having like just a more coordinated, directed approach to doing a project. You know, that's something that could be considered by the committee, and looking more to that. When is it? November deadline, I think, is the next intake for the Adopt project, you know, for a spring start. Seems like a sensible timeline to me for something for that sort of approach. You know, and then this is just me, you know, thinking off the top of my head. You know, if we did that, we could also then think, you know, the federal government every year has a summer student, you know, program to hire a summer student. So, you know, there may be ways of incorporating some labor into that. So we could think just a little more about it as, you know, a Sask Organics project, and engaging our members in that. So just throwing that out there as a potential, you know, potential way forward. Because I do know that one of our very first question was, you know, was about labor, and you know, I do think that can be, you know, that can be an issue, or is an issue on farms, right? Just trying to get, you know, labor when you need it, and so being able to help out with that, like Sask Organics being able to help out with that, you know, could also facilitate the research project happening. So.
Oh yeah, you would lead, not really facilitate. Sask Organics will lead the project application.
Yeah, I was thinking more facilitating the labor. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Helping out with that.
Yeah, the question doesn't have to be very complicated. Something like, you know, a lot of people talking about seeding date for cereal crops, and some organic producers would say, well, I would prefer to get rid of the first flush of the weeds. And which one, you know, you could start seeding when the soil is workable. And in conventional side, those guys keep talking about seeding early, and because they have fertilizers, they could apply fertilizer, and then if the crop would be able to develop earlier, and they would have lots of advantages, like tillering, and what they keep saying was, you seed the cereal crop 1 day earlier, you would get 1 more bushel of the yield in springtime. But the organic side, if we wait for a week, that could be, may not be 6 bushels. In conventional side, is that possible to receive 1 bushel yield? Well, the weeds may compete with the crop. We have no clue. And probably weedy fields have a higher yield than those slightly clean fields. We don't know. And if we do this kind of test, gather a couple of producers or 3-4 producers from different area, it's not really complicated experiment. And yeah, we could do that and see how this early seeding would suppress the weeds or affect the crop yield. And it's really simple idea, simple experiment. We could run 3 strips at different dates.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Dunlang,
Yeah.
I went up to crop production in Saskatoon this year for the first time in a long time, and there was dozens of companies promoting all these amendments and products. And some of them you kind of shook your head and say, their claims seem to be a little outrageous at times. Would an ADOPT project look at testing out some of these products?
Yeah, we would support that, and you need to include several, not just one. And because when you just compare that one, and then there's a suspicious that you are favor to some people. And if you got several or 5 something and then test it, you could run side by side, use the strips. Yeah, that would work.
Thanks. The timing of the seeding thing's a very intriguing project, other than we come back to the same field like every 4 days or something, or most farmers aren't going to like to do that.
Yeah. Well, it has to be something that's the example I give. It's pretty straightforward, and it got to be something that producers really concerned say, yeah, this is what I want to figure out, something like that. And if this something that maybe there's some similar things happen to those scientists as well. I used to make the suggestion to the scientists over university. Say, well, I would like to say this. He says, no, that's not my area. I don't care. It happens.
But I do like that seeding concept, because I've been playing with the idea of seeding earlier and earlier every year. And so it would be interesting to see what, let's say in April 30th, March or May 7th to May 15th to May 24th seeding might have on a lot of different things. Yes.
Yeah, I went to participate in one of the conference. I was told that in Norway, in Europe, well, their growing conditions are quite similar to Saskatchewan. They could get 121, 122 bushels of wheat. And over here, the better yield is somewhere around 50 something. But they got like more than twice of that kind of thing in Norway. And what they figured out was seeding date is a crucial. Well, this is a conventional. We are not expecting the organic would get 125 bushels of wheat, but it's amazing. And they were talking about the critical factor is the seeding date. You seed early, yeah. That's what I was told that seed early because cereals, particularly wheat, they don't care about the temperatures. If it's below zero, they sit there doing nothing, and if it's above zero, they start germinating. And once they start grow, they start tillering, and those are effective tillerings. And then each tillering would form effective ears, and they would have grain develop on those yields. But if it's late and most of those tillering is ineffective, there will be no wheat growing in those tillerings. And that's the key part. I think it was Mitchell. Jap told me that.
It's interesting. You mentioned about Norway. I think one of the differences is they have 90 inches of rain a year. But there is something to be said for we in organics have gotten into the conventional idea that conventional, if I can use that in an organic context, that in fact delaying is wise because we're killing weeds. But every other statistic indicates that delayed seeding results in delayed yields. So that in particular would be interesting to note. There's some interesting articles that talk about that cereals even can get started. I mean, peas are well noted, obviously, for being able to start in cold soil, but even cereals can get an early start in cold soils. And if they did, would they just simply get the jump on the weeds? And yes, you might have some more weeds, but you might be well more than compensated by having more of the grain.
I'm wondering though if we run into problems with seed-borne diseases when the seeds don't grow right away in that cold soil condition.
I think, quote, conventional has a little bit of advantage because they can put a seed treatment on there to prevent some of that stuff when it's really cold. But I have found that if that crop comes up before the annual weeds, and I'm talking annual weeds, it can compete quite well against weeds. I'm not worried about an annual weed if I can get the crop up before the annual weed sows up. So I'm okay with that.
Well, if we do that, we probably, let's say if the field is infected by kind of the thistle, and then you probably want to do a let fall tillage control, and then that would slow down the thistle coming out in early spring, and that would delay. According to what those guys in Quebec they said, if they did a good work in the fall to control thistle, it would delay for about a month. But if give a month time, that cereal crops probably far ahead of those thistles. And well, like wheat is a very competitive crop. Yeah, we should start talking this kind of things and then debate on here, and then get a few people interested and send an application to adopt and see how it goes.
Yeah, no, I agree. Sounds like a good assignment for the Education and Research Committee. Maybe there would be a subset of that committee that would like to work specifically on this project. So something to definitely bring up in that context. So we're, according to my computer, it's 9:26. So we're almost to the end of the hour. Thank you all. Thank you, Dunling, for your presentations and getting the conversation started. And thank you, everybody, for participating. It's always, that's what we envisioned when we started the calls, is that, that presentation would kick off the discussion, but we were hoping, as much of the value from participating in the call will come from the conversation between yourselves here. So I hope you find value in that as well. If there's any final question, parting question, comment, thought, other than all the best with the seeding this year. It looks like spring is, touch wood, finally on its way here, which is hopeful always. But yeah, just is there any other thought, comment, question before we end the call for today?
Marla, it doesn't look too spring out here where I am. It's snowing and just about semi-blizzarding. So.
Well, there you go. I'm sitting in Regina and the sky is blue and the sun is shining. So my perspective of Saskatchewan is completely different this morning.
Yeah,
Well, I hope.
I heard that yesterday. Last year this time, the chemical fertilizers averaged $400 per ton, and by last fall, the price went up to $800. January this year, it went up to $1,100 per ton, and now it's $1,300 per ton. And well, even you want to spend the money, but they won't be able to ship it to you on time for spring seeding. It's crazy, and hopefully a lot of people would start looking at you guys. Your neighbors turn to you, says, "Can I join you?" Doing an organic way.
Yeah.
Thankfully, they can't jump in at an instant.
No. Yeah. That's probably a good thing. Otherwise, they jump in, jump out, jump in, jump out, right? That's not good.
No, that's not. But I always think that for me, the kind of that helicopter view is that although our conventional neighbors might not decide to certify organic, anything that they do to reduce the use of chemicals on their farms and introduce more cultural practices, the better that is for the planet. So I suspect that this year and next year and the following year, there's going to be increasing interest in non-chemical, solutions to challenges on farms. So yeah, I think people will be looking this way, Dunling.
Yeah.
And thank goodness for those.
For global, sometimes it's good for their pocket as well. That's
Yes, that too. All right. Well, it is just almost 9:30, 9:29. So thank you again for being here today, and all the best with seeding this year. And yeah, be safe. And hope to see you on a webinar or two between now and the next agronomy call. So have a great rest of your day.
great. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Dunling and Marla.
See ya.
Thanks,
Again.
Martin. Thanks everyone for joining.
Yeah.